Hello everyone and welcome back to Affinity for Commander. My name is Alex and today we're going to be taking a look at probably one of the best mono green commanders to come out in quite a while. But before that, as always, if you like any of the cards I'm going to be talking about here or even wish to purchase the full deck list, then be sure to do so through any of our lovely affiliate links in the description box below. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it really helps the channel out a lot. Now let's get into our extravagant elemental. Titania, Nature's Force, is a 6/6 elemental for 4 generic and 2 green mana. She reads, you may play forests from your graveyard. And whenever a forest enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. And finally, whenever an elemental you control dies, you may mill 3 cards. So she's already a commander version of Zendikar's Royal, but instead of making 2/2s, we make 5/3s instead, a notable improvement. She's also able to play forests from the graveyard, and whenever any of the elementals we're producing dies, we also then have more cards milled to be able to play more of the forests from the graveyard that we've just milled into. A fabulous bit of synergy and card design. So starting off the low end of the curve, we're going to be looking at the insane amount of ramp that we're going to be needing to be able to play our 6 mana commander and also continually churn out 5/3s throughout the game. Elvish Mystic, Findhorn Elves, and Lanois Elves give us a good shot at a turn 1 mana producer to get ahead of other people. Crop Rotation lets us grab any of the few super important lands to the deck, which we'll come back to later. Plus, with Titania out, we can always make sure we play that Sacrificed Forest later on. Sylvan's Safekeeper and Veil of Summer both help keep our important creatures safe, and in the Safekeeper's case, the sacked lands can once again be replayed thanks to our commander. And with all the tokens our commander is producing, being able to give them haste with Concordant Crossroads is a big advantage for us. Now do however be aware that this card affects all creatures including our opponents, so be careful when playing this enchantment. Moving up to the 2 drops, we have Broken Bond to get rid of any annoying enchantments or artifacts, and get ourselves another elemental. Kenrith's Transformation to make sure someone's commander is now an elk, because we can't play Oko, but we can play the next best thing, or worst thing depending on your seat at the table. Nature's Law, Rampant Growth, and 3 visits might seem like a bit much, but they are essentially a 2 mana 5/3 that gets a land, and well heck, I'd play that card. Lotus Cobra generates mana into our pool on landfall, and penultimately, Heroic Intervention can save our adorable little army of tokens from some rude players' board wipe or any targeted removal. And finally, we're also including Crashing Drawbridge as the only other way to give our creatures haste in mono green. After all, there's nothing worse than ramping 3 times, generating 15 power, and then sitting there praying to Urza that someone doesn't just draw a board wipe on your tapped out board. This way they get to hit at least once. Now onto the bulk of the deck at the 3 drop slot, where we've got more ramp because we're in mono green, so of course we do, as well as our first ever actual non-token elementals. Fetalid helps us grab more lands to make more tokens, and plus when they die we mill 3 cards since they're an elemental, thus getting us more lands to play from the grave. Circle of Dream Druids gets to tap off all the big manas when we're done ramping out our tokens, and to help stabilise our life total, we're also running Courser of Crufix, which not only lets us play lands on the top of our deck, but gains us life whenever a land comes into play under our control. Speaking of lands entering under our control, Kodama's Reach, Cultivate, Springborn Druid, Harrow, and Nissa, Vastwood Seer all get lands directly into play and or into our hand to play later on. And with Nissa, she will 100% be flipping. We also get a Planeswalker with a card draw +1 and another token on her minus. And to take advantage of these tokens, we've got Garruk's Uprising to both draw us cards whenever one enters, plus Trample, which, considering their power imbalance, is desperately needed. And should our opponents be disrespectful enough to be playing artifacts or enchantments, then Reclamation Sage and Manglehorn can be a major pain for them. especially the Manglehorn. Coming in tapped is a real pain to a lot of artifact strategies. Now I couldn't really put these next 3 drop cards in any particular order or category, so I'm just going to group them all together and say they're mono green and I like them. Shaman of the Forgotten Ways is both ramp for creature spells and biorhythm, and oh boy do I love me some biorhythm, especially when we're making a token deck. Tyler's Tracker makes us tokens of the clue variety for card draw, Ronus' Monument makes our creatures cheaper, and can put in some serious damage when targeting our elemental tokens. And Omnath, Locus of Mana, keeps our mana on hold for us, along with becoming a massive threat himself, for just 3 mana. As well, we are of course running the new Titania, Voice of Gaia, a means of gaining life when our lands are sacrificed or milled, and can then meld with Argoth's Sanctum of Nature to get Titania Gaia Incarnate. A massive beta with a slew of keywords, all ready to one-shot any of our opponents straight out of the game. Up to the 4 drops, we've only actually got 2 creatures, as by now we've really wanted to be playing our commander and letting her generate our board state rather than playing the creatures ourselves. But the ones we do have are very much worth it. Yiva, Nature's Herald, gives all of our creatures flash to be able to make some explosive plays in other people's turns, and Forgotten Ancient, an elemental that gets bigger and can distribute its counters to others as well. Moving on to our last bits of ramp in Splendid Reclamation to put all lands from the grave onto the battlefield, which will be very useful considering how much we'll be milling. Skyshroud Claim for 2 more forests, and Tempt with Discovery, one of my favourite cards, as you just need that one Boros player to miss a land drop to fold. And when one folds, they all do. And then you get 4 lands for 4 mana. We've also got 2 powerhouse enchantments in parallel lives to double our token production and the greater good. God damn, try saying that without a West Country accent. Seriously, it's not possible. But the justification for small town fascism is fantastic means of card draw, to be sacrificing our 5/3s to get a hand bigger even than the mono blue player at the table. Finally, the 4-drop slot, we would like to be winning the game at some point. And what better way than turning our tokens into 6-power Infect Tramplers with Triumph of the Hordes, to get over any blockers and get in for the kill. And yes, I am deeply aware of the flavor fail of giving Titania Infect, but quite frankly you can pry this card from my cold, dead, completed hands. Now at this point in the game we should roughly have more mana than God himself, and thus having a slightly higher end of the curve in our 5 and 6+ drops is actually totally fine, should everything go according to plan. We are in big mono green stompy mode after all. Plus we get to play cards like Greensleeves Marrow Sorcerer to double our token production and have a big hitter. Defiler of Figure to pump our entire board and let us get around a few cheeky green costs here and there, such as Cavalier of Thorns, not only a pioneer powerhouse, but also great for getting us more landfall triggers in a turn and getting back any key cards we've milled with Titania's ability. And Ashaya Soul the Wild turns all our non-token creatures into forests, thus triggering Titania whenever we play a creature to make an elemental token. And Nissa Who Shakes the World essentially doubles our mana, allowing both our forests and our now creature forests to tap for a huge more amount of mana. And finally, we've got a card that can really only be ran in mono green or maybe a 2-color deck in Unnatural Growth. A quadruple green enchantment that turns our 5/3s into 10/6s each combat is certainly nothing to be sneered at. Now, on the tippity top of our curve, we've got Elementals, Wing-Cons, and even our combo, which, come on, did you really expect me not to include a combo even in mono green? Ancient Green Warden doubles up our landfall effects, producing more tokens and allowing us to play lands from the bin should Titania not be out. Green Warden and Marasa is another elemental that can just get back any good cards we've milled on ETB and death. Multani, Yavimai's avatar, isn't just a huge beatstick, but can also be gotten back to hand to replay, which also benefits us as we'll then have more land to play and get more sweet land ETB effects. Bane of Progress gets rid of any and all problematic artifacts and enchantments, which isn't so bad considering we're only running a very few of them. Plus, he's also an elemental. And finally, Woodland Bellower, a card that I love for its versatility. Short on mana? Grab a Wood Elves. Need to destroy a Divine Visitation? Grab a Rex Sage. Someone's playing an artifact deck? Grab Manglehorn. A fantastic creature tutor on a stick. Plus, he just looks so fluffy. And the last two cards I've included as maybe obvious but also needed. Avenger of Zendikar, because we're in mono green with a land focus, so we get this elemental out earlier and hopefully get some good triggers off to make a swole plant army. And Nyxbloom Ancient, who in addition to being able to be a very strong card, tripling our mana, he also helps with our janky combo. Now this combo involves both our enchantment creature, Wake Root Elemental, and a land, Castle Garenbrig. And it works thusly. Activate the castle for 4 green mana to produce not just 6, but now 18, thanks to the Nyxbloom Ancient. Use this to activate the elemental's ability, untapping the land, which is now a creature. We're back to the same point and have netted 7 mana overall, which can then be used to reactivate the castle, as it is now a creature, and thus producing more mana to turn our lands into creatures thanks to Wake Root Elemental. The end result is that we have a load of green mana which can only be used to cast creature spells and activate creatures' abilities. But from here we can just make all of our lands 5/5 and swarm over our opponents with trees like in the second Lord of the Rings film. Which is honestly my preferred method, but can lead you to being a bit blown out by a Settle the Wreckage or Aether Spouts, leaving you with no land. Or if you're the more practical minded sort, all this green mana can just be sunk into a massive walking ballista to machine gun down all of your opponents instead. Now moving on to the lands, and as you probably guessed, most of them are in fact forests. In fact 29 of the 36 we're running are forests. But the 7 that are not forests are very much needed and are worthy includes. The castle, obviously, as it's part of our combo, and Argoth's Sanctum of Nature melds with our other version of Titania. Boseiju Who Endures is still probably one of the best ways to instantly destroy artifacts or enchantments in green, which can then be replayed from the grave with a few of our land replaying effects. Gingerbread Cavern is just a nice non-basic forest that generates us a food token for a small amount of life. War Room lets us draw a card for a single life and 3 mana. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx is a land that will be tapping for a load of mana, considering how high our devotion is, especially among some of our permanents. And finally, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth turns all these non-forests into honorary forests, helping to trigger our commander when they too come into play. Overall, Titania is a fantastically good big old mono green commander with some good synergy in her card design of being able to replay forests in the grave to generate elementals, and when they die, mill more cards to replay more forests to get elementals. And she's a fantastic meld of 2 of the major styles of mono green play, big Landfall and big green Stompy. And honestly, I cannot wait to be able to generate a huge mass of tokens through just doing what green does best, ramping, and then hopefully trampling over all of my opponents. And that'll be it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. What cards are you excited to put in our mono green Elementress? Let me know in the comments below. We read every single one. As always, the type of content and all Affinity for Commander content is made possible thanks to the support of our amazing patrons. You guys are truly awesome. If you too would like to become a patron of the channel and have access to exclusive EDH related rewards, then be sure to check out our links in the description box below. Or you can help out the channel a few quick and easy ways, liking this video, subscribing, clicking the bell icon so you never miss a video, and you can also follow us on any of your preferred social media platforms. But that'll be it from me for now, guys. I've been Alex, and I will see you next time.